my wish now, my prayer now is that I can make it to Christmas, because if I do that, I know that I will have completed the churchyard, because it'll want 2 more mows, and you know. And
what have the doctors said to you?
Well, Dr. Nicholas, the palliative consultant, I went and had a meeting with him the other day, and the other week, and I said, I need to make it through to Christmas. I said, you know, so this is when I was trying to talk him into letting me have this anaesthetic sleep.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you won't.
He said you won't get to Christmas.
Yeah. And I said, well, I need to. I said, well, this is part of the reason, you know, why I want that. I want to sort of give myself every chance of fighting this thing back. And so anyway, he said again on television that it's weeks. But I don't believe that. I guess he knows what he's talking about. He's seen all the X-rays and whatever it is, scans and things. He knows probably more about what's in there than what I do. I know how it feels, but he knows what's going on, I think. But you know, I could prove him wrong, and I should just keep working. And I need to be active, and all the while I'm working, it's helping me.
Yeah.
When I'm active,
you've got purpose.
Yeah, and it keeps me going, and as long as I can get one foot in front of the other, that's what I'm going to be doing. And when I can't, I want to be gone very quickly then, because you know that part. You know, I'm hoping the longer I work, you know, the last bit will be just a few days. You know, when it comes to the point where I'm too weak to work.
How do you feel in the quiet moments?
I'm very, very peaceful, to be honest. I'm not at all fazed by this. I have a very.
Are you fearful of death?
No, not at all. I embrace where I'm at. You know, I find it just unusual, really. I feel sort of privileged in a way that I can be sitting here talking about it, and we're probably maybe weeks away, hopefully a couple of months away, and I feel no fear at all. I just feel anticipation of meeting my maker. As I said, a very strong faith, and meeting Jason, and you know, and I'm so convinced that that is what will happen, that you know, I await in awe and anticipation. I'm not at all concerned. I'm very much at peace, very contented, you know, which is I find strange in myself, to be honest with you.
How about those you leave behind? Your daughter Anne, her children, and her grandchildren, your great-grandchildren.
Yeah, there's a whole army of them out there.
Yes,
there's 15 great-grandchildren, and from 4 grandchildren, but they've been brilliant all the way through. They love Jason, you know, so much too. All the little children. He made their Christmases in here. You know, he used to have them up and do little tricks with them and everything. And so yeah, it's a big family and a close family, and I get a lot of support from them. And you know, and I've told them I don't want really too much sadness around me, because I don't feel sad. Now I feel, you know, I just feel I'm in a strange place.
Does it seem surreal sometimes?
Yeah, it does. It does, to think that I may not be here. Well, I won't be here next year, but it's going to be.
That could apply to any of us.
Yeah, yes, it could. And you just walk out that door, and anything could happen. But I know that will happen, and so yeah, I'm really okay with it. And I go up on every Wednesday now. I've just joined my 2 grandchildren into the South Beds Golf Club, and so I go up and get on a buggy on a Wednesday, which I'm going to do tomorrow, and drive around the golf course where I played for 25 years, and that's great fun. And as I said, I'm not in a lot of pain, and I can sort of. I like my chocolate, so it doesn't matter. I eat what I like. I want some wine, I have some wine. You know, I have a nice big English breakfast at the clubhouse afterwards, and you know, and it's I can do that stuff because you know, I have plenty of sugar now. So I like whereas I wouldn't have done. But it doesn't matter anymore. You know, I can do what I like. I'm kind of bulletproof.
When you're in the situation you're in at the moment, it must put things in a perspective that you've never had before.
Well, it does. You really do focus on the things that matter, you know, and that is really about family and love and that sort of thing. And, you know, the things that are really important in life, you know, I can't get into any small talk with anybody and things like that. There isn't time for that. You know, I just concentrate on the priorities. One of them is getting the churchyard done, and just
looking back on things that used to worry you, what would you say you've spent a lot of time wasting emotion and effort on when you didn't have the perspective you have now?
Yeah, I would think. Well, like most people, I was always a bit selfish with my time. You know, most people, it's time they're selling. You can always throw a five here or a tenner there. Nobody ever really gives more than they can afford. But it's our time that we are selfish with, and I always was. And so, and I always, and it's not answering your question properly there, but that in the end is what I wanted to make the difference. I wanted to turn that completely around. I wanted to be the person, the opposite to the person I was, and give up all of my time, you know, all of it. So that, you know, which is the one thing I guarded very much. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it through my life, like most people. But I changed that around, and that was the big turning point for me, which came from that sort of defining moment when I was in the pub, and you know, and all of the things that I went through, like I mentioned the foot, that was one thing. Then the 5 months depression, that was another thing, which then led to the cancer, and that was another thing. And so that again, I was off for about 2 months. So I had to get it all back again, and then I had another 2 or 3 minor operations, gallbladder removal and gallstones removed out of my bile duct and piles removed. Those things, they were aggravation, but I worked for all them. Then I got a twisted bowel, which was worse than I said. The first operation that kept me out for about nearly 3 months, and but for each of those 3 times I come back and got it all back again. It was like starting again. So 5 times I did that, and over 10 years, and I think to myself, how did I do it? And you know, I know how I did it because I get my strength from the Lord. I know I do, and in that time, and at the end of that, of course, my darkest hour was yet to come with Jason. You know, that was the, of course, the worst time. So, but you know, I worked through those dark days, obviously, and as I said earlier, I dug all this plot out and then got a sort of a 18 months extension, if you like, to my life, which came about just because of that. So. And when things happen like that, you do think there's a kind of a reason for it, you know. I dug that and it caused that to happen, you know, and it ended up giving me 18 more months than I would have had. And
what would your message be to your daughter, her children, your great-grandchildren?
Well, really...
What have you learnt that you would like to pass on to them?
Well, I have passed quite a lot on to them because Jason left such a wonderful legacy. You know, we gave Jason a lot, and it cost us a lot doing the pub and everything, as we've said. But he left such a wonderful legacy. You know, financially, he had everything covered and everything. And I've been able to help the whole family out. And he was always on about that. He always said, when I make it, Dad, he says, I want the children in the best schools. I want Little Anne to be out of the council estates, you know, want them in nice houses. He always had a dream for the family from his success. So because he left such a wonderful legacy, I've been able to fulfil a lot of that. You know, I've squared debts for them and everything. I've got them to stop smoking. I've got them to get well. I said, no, this is the best thing you can do for Jason, you know, to show your appreciation. Because rather than just leaving it in a will, I wanted to help them now while I can see the benefits. And they've stopped smoking, and they're on diets, they're looking well, they're getting well, and it's running right through the family. You know, all of them. You know, everybody's benefiting, and that's a wonderful legacy that Jason has left.
Yeah. But what would you say to them?
Well, I would say, to me, you see, my faith is the most important thing to me. You know,
Do they share your
my
faith?
belief. Well, I've written some verse and stuff. I wrote that whilst in the last 5 years or so, and it took me a long while to write it. It took me about 20 years thinking about one of them, The Wonder of Faith, and never could really explain it, so I decided to write it down one time. But that took me a year, but not continually, but on and off, a year to complete that, and it ended up in verse, which is... But I don't do that sort of stuff, you see, so... And I want everybody to read it, because it's sort of... It's written as I see it as a modern-day Christian, you know, and I've written this, and it's been turned into a little booklet, which... And I really, I want them to have that belief, really, because that to me is the most important thing of all, that, you know, because this life is just this life. It's what is beyond that, which to me is the most important bit. And, you know, and if I can sort of guide them in that direction, that's what I try to do. I get them to read my stuff, and, you know, I say, now, are you reading it properly? Digest it, you know, don't just read it and put, you know, and they do, they understand, they get it, and, you know, and it's rubbing off, and I love to see, you know, that happen, that they sort of are starting to take notice and believe the things that I've written about.
No, and your story seems to bear this saying out. They say that takers will never be happy because they can never get enough. Givers are always happy.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's the one thing I found out, which I never knew existed. I mean, if I could, what I've written, I need to quote it because I can't remember what I've written. But there's one thing there which I had. It was one afternoon in the churchyard. It was a lovely afternoon. It was about 5 or 6 years ago, and I felt really totally at peace with myself. I looked around, everywhere looked lovely. I've been doing it about 5 or 6 years. It was, you know, and I felt so much at peace. And it caused me to write something which I put For Thy Glory. But if I could get hold of it and read it to you, it would show you what I meant. It's not very long. Sometimes I glimpse a wonderful place, such peace and contentment within thy space. It cannot be bought or yet earned. Selfless fulfillment has to be learned. Well, I never knew selfless fulfillment. I'd never experienced it. I didn't know it existed. But when I got the reward, and people say, well, that's a credit to you what you're doing, all this and that, and you know, and I just felt such pride and the reward from what, and that's selfless fulfillment. I'd never realised that, and that is just so much more than selfish fulfillment, which is when we're buying new cars and new houses and what have you and stuff. You know, it's just an area I've never been in. And then I just put, no more to take, only to give. For thy glory, it is better to live. And that's the way I've tried to live my life since the Black Horse time, really. I haven't been successful a lot of the time, you know, there's lots of things that I do that I shouldn't do, of course, but it's given me that wonderful sense of selfless fulfillment. I've given myself some credibility, you know, some real self-respect, which I didn't always, you know, like the way I was, and but now I just love the way I am. I'm just glad that I've changed into the person that I am.
Thank you for your time, and time is precious, as I know. And I hope our little film serves you well. And can I wish you well for the future?
Yes, certainly, Stephen.
Okay.
Yes.
You look after yourself. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.